Disaster in the air over the nation's capital.
I've been praying that there wouldn't be something like last night, but kind of dreading in my heart that there would be.
Breaking hearts, dredging up pain, and problems from the past.
It was the perfect storm of everything that could go wrong, went wrong.
Questions then and now, expanding our national investigative team's efforts, digging into aviation safety.
Does that number shock you?
Of course it does. We shouldn't have 1,800 in those years, never mind 18,000.
Putting scrutiny on a system built to figure out how accidents happen, with our work pinpointing failures that have paved the way for future tragedies.
I think there's nothing that you can do that's more important than figuring out why it happened and don't let it happen again.
Investigate TV, shining a light on issues that went uncorrected after crashes across the country.
It's outrageous. It's our government not serving us.
Examining hundreds of government reports dating back decades, exposing serious issues with how aviation accidents are investigated.
If the NTSB does not have people at these crashes that have fatalities, something is broken.
Uncovering recommendations designed to save lives, delayed or ignored as additional crashes claimed more lives.
Want to do something about it? Adopt the recommendation of the NTSB. You'll save lives.
Finding close calls and near misses reported again and again by people in the cockpit and in air traffic control towers, with the red flags they raised often disregarded.
But there's negligence on the part of many of our so-called leaders that have seen these problems and not addressed them.
With a special edition of Investigate TV Plus Weekend, here's Joce Sterman with Up in the Air.
A military helicopter on a routine training mission. A regional jet bringing ice skaters, families, and business people back to the nation's capital. A series of mistakes and a history of systemic failures brought them together on a collision course above the icy Potomac River. What happened in the January crash at Reagan National Airport claimed 67 lives and renewed attention on aviation problems that have plagued the country for decades. But even before that fateful night, our national investigative team was already months into an investigation, digging into issues into how incidents like the DC crash are investigated. That tragedy sent us deeper into an examination of the nation's aviation system, uncovering major red flags that had been ignored and recommendations designed to save lives that had been disregarded. Using government records, investigation reports, and decades worth of data, we discovered federal agencies, members of Congress, and multiple administrations have consistently turned a blind eye to serious problems that have been well known and documented, leaving the safety of the flying public up in the air. From the wreckage pulled up from the icy waters of the Potomac in Washington, D.C., to the clues buried deep down in the fractured pavement of Philadelphia. As the nation mourns devastating aviation crashes, investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board are picking up the pieces.
From tragedy, we draw knowledge to improve the safety for us all. That's what we're doing right now.
Any aviation accident investigated by the NTSB is the unraveling of a series of seemingly small decisions, malfunctions, or mistakes that can ultimately break apart not just an aircraft, but the ties that bind families together.
Our family chain was destroyed. A big link was shattered, but we have hope that one day we will all be together again.
Faith in the future is what keeps Mary Hummer from dwelling too much on the pain of the past. But for nearly 20 years, her family has been tethered together by grief, carrying the weight of questions that started the day her big brother was killed.
I just remember my husband turning the TV on and seeing the accident, and I know no matter how long it is, you still get teared up. He just said, you better call Karen and see where he is.
He was Charlie Likens. An avid golfer, he decided to skip around to catch an earlier plane to join his wife and kids in Florida. It was a fateful decision that would separate them forever.
It was definitely the most tragic thing that's ever, we've had tragedies with friends and family, but it's hard to put into words what it's like having someone in a plane crash.
It was the 2006 crash of Comair Flight 5191 in Lexington, Kentucky.
West side of the runway was a Comair regional jet taking off.
Records show that after attempting takeoff on the wrong runway, one that was too short, the plane ran off the edge. It crashed through the perimeter fence and trees and burst into flames, killing 49 of the 50 people on board.
It was the perfect storm of everything that could go wrong, went wrong, and if any one thing had been different, it probably would have changed the outcome.
As with many investigations, the NTSB did issue recommendations designed to improve safety and prevent tragedies. Their work after Comair led to reforms on everything from runway markings to air traffic controller fatigue prevention. But accomplishing that, we found, involved lengthy negotiations between the NTSB and FAA, with recommendations left up in the air, unresolved for years. It's something we've seen again and again in federal aviation records, and a problem experts say continues to this day.
With several hundred recommendations open for aviation, you want to do something about it? Adopt the recommendation of the NTSB. You'll save lives. Get off and do something. I don't want to have to meet with another set of those parents like that again. Not fair. Could be your family.
Our national investigative team, with our partners at the Arnold Center for Investigative Journalism, decided to do an exhaustive analysis of NTSB aviation recommendations dating back to the start of the century. Since 2000, we've found the agency has issued nearly 1,400 directives specific to the FAA.
Former NTSB board member John Golia says recommendations are voluntary but powerful.
Yes, they do hold weight. You have to exercise it.
NTSB has getting action on most of its recommendations after working with the FAA. But we discovered about 1/4, more than 350, have been closed without the requested remedies, ranging from making pilot background and training records searchable to be certain they're safe to fly, to requirements that weights on certain aircraft are measured and logged before takeoff. Another nearly 200 recommendations are still open, including one from the Miracle on the Hudson about emergency procedures, others calling for more oversight of living history flights, helicopter tours, skydiving operations, and hot air balloon rides. Despite the FAA taking actions that it believes address safety concerns, the NTSB has labeled the responses on those recommendations and more than 50 others unacceptable.
Why is it that the NTSB is saying, hey guys, we should be doing this, but the FAA isn't implementing those instructions, that guidance that they've given them?
Because there's two sets of rules in the government. The NTSB doesn't look at the financial consequences of what we recommend.
NTSB is an independent, no oversight. They make the calls, they can recommend anything they want. Those recommendations come to the FAA. But there's a big difference.
The FAA wouldn't talk with us despite repeated requests since last year. But as a former FAA administrator, Randy Babbitt knows the distinction well. Those NTSB recommendations landed on his desk, with competing interests impacting solutions as the disasters weighed on his conscience.
I get the emotional side of it. You're up close to, right there with the, right heartstrings, the aftermath and the families. I mean, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And it's not for lack of wanting to do it. It's the system that is built to protect it. Sometimes those protections slow you down.
Slowed by congressional mandates and priorities, impact studies, and industry input from stakeholders including the airlines, pilot unions, and aircraft manufacturers. But the biggest hurdle, Babbitt says, is cost. It's a factor we found in the correspondence for dozens of NTSB recommendations that haven't been adopted. That's because before it can make any new safety rule, the FAA is legally required to do a cost analysis to prove the benefits of change outweigh the price.
I completely understand when people say, well, I don't care what it costs. Well, parts of the government do care, and that's where the conflict comes in.
And our team found the back and forth battle can be fought for years, with the NTSB echoing the same concerns even as more deadly accidents occur. After a 2015 crash into an Ohio apartment building, killing 9, the NTSB recommended installing data recorders in charter planes and helicopters and creating flight monitoring programs to identify unsafe practices. The FAA claimed the cost benefit was $0. But for years, the NTSB reiterated its request again and again, following crashes that killed 19 people in Alaska, Hawaii, and California, including the tragedy involving Kobe Bryant. In January, the FAA agreed the recorders and monitoring provide beneficial information, but pointed again at cost, saying current programs and technology meet safety needs.
How would you respond to people who believe that with some of these recommendations, cost is prioritized over safety?
All you can really say, if you're at the FAA, is you need to understand the constraints that we operate under and the way the laws are set in this country.
A country, Babbitt points out, that is known as the gold standard in aviation, safely flying millions of people daily and going more than a decade without a significant disaster. But even Babbitt knows that's little comfort to those whose lives have been broken into pieces, now kept under glass.
Oh, that little with the C on it, that's a piece of the airplane that someone gave me. And my friend's dad stamped a C on it.
Mary Hummer hopes one day the debate over safety recommendations will move faster, focusing less on the cost of change and more on the people who could pay the ultimate price.
I think there's nothing that you can do that's more important than figuring out why it happened and don't let it happen again.
In the last 15 years, the NTSB has investigated more than 100 accidents, some of them deadly, with ties specifically to another pain point in American aviation, air traffic control, which made major headlines after a communication blackout at Newark International Airport. Coming up next, what we uncovered in thousands of reports by the pilots and air traffic controllers who deal firsthand with our country's dated system. An air traffic control blackout at Newark delayed flights for weeks as the government moved to make much-needed improvements. It also sent our team digging into a government safety reporting system that tracks incidents flagged by pilots and air traffic controllers. From near misses to technology problems, the issues we've found, critics say they've long been ignored.
Runway 28 right, taxi via Alpha.
When you're playing traffic cop for airplanes across the nation,
United 827, Academy Ground Information, Julia, current advisory, have it.
people like Matthew Schofield know you leave very little up in the air.
When I plugged in, I was the alpha male. I told planes where to go.
He spent decades as an air traffic controller. Now he's at Nashua Community College, where a team is gearing up to teach the next generation of controllers, using a simulator to train for any future scenario they could experience.
Here we're able to simulate it, stop it, talk about it. So God forbid this does happen in real life. Again, you got that tool in your box. Hopefully you use it.
It's a critical lesson at a time when mistakes and problems in the real world have put aviation safety under an intense microscope.
The fact is, an aging system poses an untenable risk to safety.
That scrutiny started in January with the deadly crash between a military helicopter and a commercial flight that killed 67 people at Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National. The tragedy shining a harsh spotlight on air traffic controller shortages that have plagued the system since the 1980s. And in the months since, a series of outages in major towers across the nation, including a 90-second blackout in Newark, are once again drawing attention to the system's dated technology.
We can no longer kick the can down the road, as the saying goes. We need to sit and fix the problem.
They're issues John Golia knows have plagued the air traffic control system for decades. He saw them up close as a member of the National Transportation Safety Board, investigating aviation crashes. Now he's seeing them again, looking at the findings of our national investigation, which examined NTSB reports and data dating back to 2010.
Time to deal with it.
In that time frame, our team found the agency investigated at least 135 accidents or incidents where air traffic control was listed as a cause or contributing factor. Those include close calls as well as mid-air or runway collisions, at least 40 where people were killed.
But there's negligence on the part of many of the so-called leaders that have seen these problems and not addressed them.
Problems that have also been highlighted again and again in stunning reports to the Aviation Safety Reporting System, which allows pilots and air traffic controllers to confidentially log safety incidents with the government. In the last 15 years, our team found more than 18,000 reports involving air traffic control.
And that's just an indication of, A, the system is overloaded.
Pushed to its limits, as evidenced by recent stories we uncovered in the system. Pilots reporting being forgotten by air traffic control in busy traffic as they headed straight toward a mountain. And a plane forced to go around seconds before landing after hearing another flight cleared for takeoff, with the tower asking, "I forget, did I clear you to land?" And it's not just those in the air sounding the alarm. Controllers have logged thousands of reports about incidents related to workload and faulty technology, including one controller blaming a total lack of radar in complicated airspace near Seattle for nearly causing a mid-air crash, writing, "We're going to watch a lot of people die one day, and I hope I am not working when it happens."
I felt their pain.
They feel the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
As air traffic control shoulders the burden and stress, the Department of Transportation and Congress are feeling the pressure on damage control to fix the system and reassure the public.
I do want to stress, our airways are safe.
Representative Sam Graves is trying to make them even safer, shepherding a plan through Congress that would pour billions into new radar, telecommunications, and guidance systems in towers across the country. Still, the work could take years.
You can't just shut the system down, overhaul it, and then turn it back on again. We have to continue to operate.
And have air traffic controllers at the ready.
We want to teach the next generation to be better than us to keep us all safe.
A massive budget bill that passed through Congress and became law has now funneled billions of dollars to jumpstart those air traffic control improvements. But funding is still needed elsewhere to make sure aviation is safe. Still to come, why crash investigations that are supposed to be independent are being handled by a government agency that's come under fire for being too close to the industry. When planes crash, it's the NTSB's job to figure out why. But critics say there's a problem in the plan. The agency doesn't have the money or the manpower to actually go and visit every small plane accident or incident. What we discovered that means is that some parts of what are supposed to be independent investigations are actually left to another agency that's come under scrutiny for its lack of oversight.
When disaster strikes on the rails, the road, in the water, and in the air, it's investigators with the NTSB who are tasked with figuring out what went wrong. The National Transportation Safety Board, created as an independent watchdog deliberately separate from the FAA and charged by Congress to investigate every aviation accident in America. But as it balances budget and staffing challenges, our National Investigative Team discovered the NTSB is often MIA from a critical piece of crash investigations, the on-scene response.
I couldn't believe it.
On October 2nd, 2020, Ellen Sturm was supposed to be hosting a birthday party with her longtime love, Steve Barnes. Before it even got started, a plane crash had her planning his funeral.
Everything okay up there?
Barnes, a prominent attorney and pilot, was killed along with his niece when his private plane crashed near Buffalo.
It's just like the two brightest lights extinguished.
The crash, by law, automatically igniting a federal investigation by the NTSB. But although the agency was at the helm, it wasn't on the ground. So the on-site investigation duties were left to the FAA, which did respond in person.
It felt like nobody really cared enough to really look into what happened.
Our National Investigative Team discovered arm's-length investigations are a fairly common practice for the NTSB, even in cases where people are killed. With help from our partners at the Arnold Center for Investigative Journalism at Indiana University, we analyzed data from the agency's accident reports dating back to 2015. Our team found NTSB investigators didn't respond on scene to an average of at least 21% of fatal aircraft crashes each year, relying on FAA investigators to be their eyes and ears on the ground.
Some reports outlined a clear reason for investigators not to go. Things like pilot suicides, crashes into the ocean, or remote dangerous terrain that made examining wreckage impossible. Others had witnesses, video or radio recordings that gave the NTSB solid leads on a potential cause without seeing the scene. But that's not always the case.
I think most people, if they looked at this picture as a whole, would say the problem is not at the NTSB, it's not at the FAA. It rests with the people who allocate the resources for the job that they want done.
Resources are a real challenge. The FAA has more than 40,000 employees. The NTSB, about 400, with only about 50 on-scene investigators. So it has to make strategic decisions about whether another party, like the FAA, can handle the scene.
We'll have a direct contact with the investigator that goes, and it will be a collaborative effort of deciding what to do.
But it's that collaboration that has some critics sounding alarms about the NTSB and FAA being too close for comfort.
Right now, there's no faith in the system.
For Ellen Sturm, it's a system that has failed to deliver answers for her family. The cause of the crash that killed Steve and Liz Barnes is still a mystery, listed as a failure to maintain control for undetermined reasons.
Why did it drop from the sky? I still don't feel like I know.
The NTSB asked for more than $150 million in next year's budget, but they didn't get it all. Up next, what the agency found in its preliminary look at the crash in Washington, and what's already changed since that tragic crash. Immediately after the accident at Reagan National, the Transportation Secretary moved to restrict some helicopter traffic around DCA. And just weeks later, the NTSB released alarming findings from its own data, discovering more than 15,000 near-miss events between helicopters and planes at DCA in just a few years.
The existing separation distances are insufficient and pose an intolerable risk to aviation safety by increasing the chances of a mid-air collision at DCA.
The NTSB has issued some urgent recommendations as it continues work to pinpoint the cause of the accident at Reagan. Our team will be keeping a close eye on the developments, and when they happen, you'll find updates and all of our aviation investigations at InvestigateTV.com. Just search air travel. I'm Joce Sterman. Thanks for watching.